Hi, I'm Peyton.
And I'm Rachel, and we are back with a really fun episode topic for you guys. We are talking about the mental and physical dangers of added sugar.
Yeah,
So,
and this is going to be an interesting topic because it leads in a lot of different directions, and it's kind of just a wildfire right now with the Make America Healthier Again movement and all of these interesting articles and facts coming out about sugar, where it's hidden, what it causes. So we are going to go through the myths, the facts today and kind of debunk everything that you've been seeing and what is actually the truth. Because it's not that Diet Coke is the healthier alternative, and just because there's no sugar in it doesn't mean that there's actually no sugar in it.
yes, we have to talk about that. But first, we do need to talk about the amount of sugar that the average American consumes, right? So, the average American consumes 17 teaspoons of added sugar daily. And this habit is feeding a lot more than just a sugar high, right? It is affecting the way that your body, your mental health, your physical health, every aspect of how you function, it's affecting all of those things, right? Sugar is a breeding ground for inflammation. It causes a lot of inflammation in your body, which affects your gut health, which therefore affects your mental health, which also affects the way that you handle situations, your anxiety, your depression. If you have increased inflammation in the body, cancer cells love that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about all of this.
Yeah,
And
and on top of all of that, sugar is also highly addictive, as you all have probably experienced. When you open a bag of candy, it's really hard to just have one piece because it just lights something up in your brain. So it's highly addictive, and it's actually more addictive than an opioid drug like cocaine. So when you quit sugar cold turkey, you would have similar effects of how you as you would if you were cutting out a hard drug like cocaine. So you would have the cold turkey effects of depression, cold sweats, anxiety, all of those things you would be experiencing that if you were consuming a mass amount of sugar and then stopping. So that is, to put into perspective, that is how addicting sugar can be.
it's really scary when you think about the way that everything functions. And, just as a preface to the way that sugar and your brain, respond, right? We have to talk about just a pure disclaimer here. We are not talking about natural sugars. So sugars that occur in their normal form, right? We are talking about added sugar, artificial
Yeah.
sugar,
Processed,
and
refined.
the way that those are designed to be so inherently addictive. And so kind of go into this episode and think to yourself, okay, if everything that we were doing, we as Americans was working, why are we the sickest that we've ever been? So, the conversation really does need to switch to what's in your food, what's in your products, what are you consuming, what can you be doing better? And, cancer's at an all-time high. So kind of go into this with an open mind. I feel like every day we read a new health study or a new article that suggests that the thing that your intuition told you was true, you know, what? A
Yeah.
year ago, 10 years ago, we are now just proving. And we can see that even with the removal of red dye 3, right? We knew that was bad. And they just now are going to start mandating that in, what is it, 2027? They're pulling that out.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
taking that
So,
long to actually get there. And to kind of just put this into a better perspective, the average amount of sugar consumed a year used to be 1 pound of sugar per human. And now the average amount of sugar consumed per human a year is 140 pounds of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. So imagine going to the gym and you've been consistently just squatting 10 pounds. You go to the gym, you squat, you put 10 pounds on, and that is what you're used to. And then you go into the gym the next day and you say, I'm just going to try going for 180 pounds. Why not? I may as well. Your legs might snap. You're probably going to hurt something. You're probably going to hurt your back. So imagine this is what's happening in this sugar epidemic is we never us humans aren't used to consuming mass amounts of refined sugar like this, artificial sugar, factory made sugar. So we went from 0 to 100, and then at the same time correlation or causation, we are becoming the sickest culture, which is
Yes. And
extremely
so
fascinating.
it is. And it's a really great analogy, right? Think about benching 10 and then 180. Your body was never designed to process out or handle the magnitude of sugar. And it was also our bodies were designed to consume things in their natural form and whole food ingredients, right? So this kind of experiment where we're consuming an increased amount of processed foods, in order to make processed foods taste good, they need to add sugar. That's why you see added sugar, even marketed to be healthy options. When you flip to the side of the label and you read the added sugar side, it's like, okay, at what point is this too much? And so when you are consuming high amounts of sugar, you get blood sugar spikes that follow, crashes. So think about how much kids are eating, and then their moods are crashing and they're wondering why their behavior is atrocious. So think
So
about this.
here,
Yeah,
sorry.
go for
It's
it.
hard when we're not in the same place, but
I know.
so hear me out. Like the big food industry, of course, wants you to be addicted to their product. So what can they do to put in that to make you highly addicted to it? This this chemical, this refined sugar that is very similar to cocaine. They can put it in their food, and you are finishing that bag of potato chips that actually has hidden sugars in it so fast. You can't wait to reach your hand in that bag for the next chip. People are addicted to food. We've gone further than gluttony. It is people are actually addicted to this food. So it's great for big food industry because you are addicted to their product. You can't wait till you have the next bite. You're finishing the bag. You're eating more than you actually need. You're not even hungry, but you're just craving it. Have you even I've noticed this when I was cutting sugar out, added sugar
Mhm.
specifically, and I've noticed that I was just craving it even if I wasn't hungry. I just wanted it. I wasn't hungry. I didn't need it, but you're just craving it. So it's so interesting that this industry has taken something that mimics cocaine, fill it, they use that in their food, and then we have an obesity crisis, and people are truly addicted to the processed foods.
It's really scary when you look at it at large, right? The amount of children that I see that are obviously not the healthiest. Let's put it that way, right? Their little bodies are working so overtime to compensate for the artificial foods. And while it's easy to point the finger, that those are the foods that everyone thinks they should be buying. They think that they should buy those chips that they know the brand is familiar. There are healthier options out there. So, but it's sad. And you think about
Yeah.
Oreos. What is in an Oreo? Please don't buy Oreos. There are options, you guys. There are cookies that you can make with different types of sugar. I personally, if I'm baking, I cook with coconut sugar. I cook with healthier alternatives, maple syrup,
Yeah.
honey. You can use different things that are friendlier for your glycemic index and don't cause those insane sugar spikes. Also, if you're consuming certain items together, certain food groups together, you can really avoid the crash that people experience. And so it's definitely not to say that you can never have cookies and you're supposed to live on like meat and salad for the rest of your life. That is a complete oversimplification of the message that we're trying to get out there. But there
Yeah.
are
So my rule of
things,
thumb,
yeah.
sorry. We're getting used to doing this remote thing, and it's a
It
little more
snowed,
difficult when
and
we have a
so
lag. Yeah.
we can't be together
Yeah.
because it snowed, and so we're trying our best.
We have a lag. Um, but my rule of thumb is when I'm in the grocery store and I just like love playing this game when I see a product and it's in a package and they advertise it, oh, this is a strawberry milkshake Pop Tart. It's definitely not that. So whatever it's telling you it is, it's probably not. If it's an Oreo, it's most certainly not cookies and cream. I'll tell you that. So it's interesting to go into the grocery store and you find all these packaged things and they're going to present you with, oh, this is the flavor, but then turn it around. It certainly has no strawberries in it. It has red dye. It's not like that at all. So it is truly false advertising. And when a child goes into the grocery store, they see the snack aisle and they advertise it as all of these things, all of these flavors that they like, it's it's trapping these kids. They reach for that and they purposely market it. They put these products at kids' eye level, so they're walking down the grocery aisle, they're walking down the snack aisle, and they can see all of these snacks and they grab it and they ask their mom, "Can I put this in the cart?" So it's purposely targeted at children.
It breaks my heart because it shouldn't be that hard as a parent to walk into the store, the options for your family. Also, you are keeping an eye on the cost of your grocery bill. The safe option is, of course, just whole food ingredients. Try and cook as many of your meals from
Yeah.
scratch. I know for myself, I'm very on the go these days. I'm in the process of moving. And so, I can't wait until I can meal prep and just have some easy things to grab on hand, right? Because you don't always have time to quickly whip up an entire dinner. And I get that. My weeknight meals are not near as interesting as my weekend
Yeah.
cooking meals, right? But all of this to say that chronic sugar intake, it's really truly impairing your memory. It's increasing your risk of depression. It's messing with your gut microbiome, and it's adding in a lot of, it's basically a breeding ground for harmful gut bacteria. And when you're seeing that, you're seeing a complete disruption in your gut microbiome balance. And there's enough that we're consuming that could possibly be contributing to that, whether that is environmental, food on the go, that I personally, and I know Peyton does too, we kind of live by that 80-20 rule, right? We're not perfect all the time. It's very unrealistic. If I'm on the road and I'm traveling, there's only so many options available to you in certain settings. So it's like the 80-20 rule, right? Do the best you can when you can, and then do the next best thing that you have
Yeah.
to when you're in a pinch, right? But so all of these things in general that you're consuming could be disrupting your gut microbiome. Do what you can with the sugar front and try and cut out some of these ingredients that are really just a breeding ground for inflammation in your body. And when you
Yeah.
have that imbalanced gut, 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. And there's a reason that they call it your second brain. With that, it's affecting your serotonin production. That's your happy hormone. That's what makes you feel even keeled, restful. And all of these disruptions ultimately feed poor sleep, poor ability to process your emotions. You become a version of yourself that you don't realize. If you're a girl, it contributes to more painful periods, frankly. Cutting out added sugar for me was a game changer. And the less you consume it, the less you crave it. And the less you crave, I mean, at one point, it's like, it's not even helpful for you anymore. And yeah, go for it.
So, something that's really interesting is on one side, we have the refined and processed sugars are highly inflammatory. They're notable to cause damage in one's body. And then on the other hand, we have natural sugars, such as those found in berries, specifically like red berries, are great to be preventative in cancer treatment. Like that's something that you can holistically pair with. When you are diagnosed with cancer, they highly suggest the antioxidants in
Yep.
berries. And it has natural sugars, but there are so many benefits to the natural sugars. So they taste sweet, and honestly, it's real. And now, once you kick your sugar addiction, the real sugar tastes so much better. Having added sugar, having processed candy and nerds and things like that, just don't do it because it's not even close to the real thing. And so when you have the real thing, it tastes so much better. And that's something that I'm like really leaning into and just trying to experience a little more of and enjoy it because I don't feel like I have the craving for sugar at all anymore, the processed sugar. But my nighttime snack is a bowl of raspberries or strawberries, putting some dark chocolate chips in there, and that to me is so delicious. It tastes so good. And I like it actually feels whatever craving I had, it's so much better. Even if I had candy or if I had something highly like high in sugar, I would reach for the fruit.
Yeah, I always keep berries on hand, and I always keep at least frozen organic blueberries in my fridge. Costco has like a giant bag of them, and I always keep
Yeah.
them in there. I'll put them in my yogurt. I will put them in my protein smoothies. It's just such an easy thing to have, and you make a great point. It really does taste so much better when you're used to the real stuff as opposed to the other stuff. Now, I will say that that's like that takes a second, right? To wean
Yeah.
yourself off of the fake stuff. Because what happens is then you consume the fake stuff and you taste how artificial and it's almost too sweet. Does that make sense?
hmm It's
And I still,
overwhelming.
yes,
You don't get a
it's
flavor with
too
it. It's
it's
just sweet. I don't taste
it's
anything else but the sweetness.
you could just talk, like I could just leave it. So in essence, just to kind of wrap that segment up, really try and reduce your sugar intake. I believe that we're only supposed to consume 21 grams of added sugar per day. And I would say
hmm
that it is very easy to go well over that per day. Um,
Yeah.
so really try and look at the added sugars on your foods and reduce those where you can. I definitely still consume some just because, for example, I buy Poppy or Olipop as like an alternative to like a
Yeah.
soda. Normally, I'm drinking Spindrift just because it's carbonated water with I love the Nojito flavor. It's mint and it's so tasty. But if I'm not drinking that or just normal water with electrolytes or whatever, I do have a Poppy or an Olipop. Those have like 3, I think, usually grams of added sugar,
Yeah.
but just keep in mind that those things add up throughout the day. And so look to see, it's hard to cut all together, but it can be done. And you should ultimately try to reduce that added sugar intake because
Yeah.
we now get to talk about the fun stuff,
It's just
sugar
the
and
this
cancer.
yes. And so although this may not be proven that sugar causes cancer, it's certainly not helping the cancer epidemic that we're currently facing. I just think that the amount of cancer that we're seeing is reached a point where it's just ungodly. It is not getting smaller. We're having a larger issue, which, we've invested billions of dollars into the cancer industry. At this point, it should be shrinking. We've done so much cancer research, and with all of that, we should be able to shrink the amount of people that have cancer. And why is it growing? Why is it getting extreme? It's growing so quickly, but we have put so much money into prevention and discovering where this comes from, yet we have no answers and all we have is treatment. So we really need to be looking at what's around us, what we're consuming, what's in our environment. And sugar is something that we've been seeing more and more of because it is a preservative. It's easier than putting natural things in food because they don't stay on the shelf as long, right? So if you have natural things in foods, they don't usually sit out have a long shelf life, which is bad for the big food industry, right? They have to keep throwing away products. They're not having as high of an ROI. So they like to do the added sugar. And so perhaps this is could be a reason why we're seeing the cancer rates increase. But having high sugar diets have been linked to increased inflammation in the body, which can create an environment conducive to cancer development. Consuming excessive sugar leads to elevated blood glucose levels, prompting the pancreas to release more insulin. Chronic high insulin levels can stimulate cell proliferation, including the potential growth of cancer cells.
Yeah, it's kind of a it's truly a cancer to your body and
Yeah.
it because of that breeding ground, because of what sugar can do to your body. We're just seeing something that we've never seen before. And ask yourself how many people you know personally who have been faced with a cancer diagnosis. You know, for me, it's a high number. My dad has had cancer. Um, so many people close to me have very close family members. They've had cancer. I feel like every other day I'm reading about someone's perfect, you know, child getting diagnosed with cancer. What is going on? And it hurts my heart because there has to be a reason. This wasn't as common as it is today. And, it's hard to think when you're in the midst of that suffering and that pain and that diagnosis, that there could have been something that could have been done differently. But ask
Yeah, and
yourself to hold the powers that be accountable, because Peyton mentioned big food, big pharma. Why is the only investigation done after you're diagnosed? We had a great conversation last week on the podcast where we were discussing that by the time you show up for, with your symptoms, that's been happening probably before you receive a formal diagnosis for 10 years. You're down that rabbit hole for
yeah.
maybe 10 years, and then you're finally being looked at and your symptoms are being taken seriously. That's
And
heartbreaking.
and I know people are not going to want to hear this because it's a hard pill to swallow, but most cancer, 98% of cancers are preventable. And that is a hard pill to swallow because then we have to look at ourselves, we have to look at our lifestyles, we have to look at what we're consuming and why we're facing this. What is in our environment that is killing us? And that's a lot to take in, but at the same time, the we've seen this massive progression of cancer, and there's only so much that has changed in our environments, but part of it is the big food industry. And I understand that we have mass amounts of people to feed. We don't have a whole lot of farmers like we did 100 years ago. The landscape of things have essentially changed significantly, actually. Like, we used to just get our food from farmers, but now we have grocery stores. We are mass producing food, so we can have enough food for everybody. And so, unfortunately, that leads to preservatives. And how can we preserve our foods? How can we make it last longer on the shelves? How can we feed everybody? We have obesity as well. So, people are just wanting to eat out of boredom at this point. So, we are mass producing food. There's a high profit margin behind it as well. So, we're seeing a lot of things shift in this industry, but it starts with the ingredients so they can produce and make profit.
It's tough. And, I encourage anyone listening to take a breather, give yourself grace. When you know better, you can do better. If you have been, on a path that you would like to change, it's never too late to make a different choice tomorrow. You can do it today. You can make a choice tonight that is in your best interest. So, and the more educated you are on the subject, the harder it is to ignore. When you are learning about that inflammation. So, what we are talking about, right? Sugar causing inflammation in your body. That inflammation becomes a breeding ground when your body is living in a perpetual state of stress, or basically you're not in that sweet spot of equilibrium, and different areas of your body are elevated or unregulated. You are basically creating a breeding ground for cancer. And that inflammation is what's causing that. And inflammation can be, if you are obese, that is inflammation in your body. Your body is working overtime because it's not functioning the way that it should. If you are in certain seasons of your life where you're busy, you're working all the time, you're not sleeping as much, your body is in a state of inflammation. And that's not to be afraid of living or entering busy seasons, right? But it is a sobering reminder to take a breath, slow down, prioritize your mental health as well. Because there is just, of course, as we talked about, that gut health connection. And when you are disrupting the balance of that gut microbiome, it is really important that your microbiome is diverse and contains a bunch of different little nuggets in there, right? And so when you are entering into that dangerous state where it's not in the balance zone, the harmful bacteria start to outweigh the beneficial bacteria that you have. And so this, compromises the gut barrier. It allows toxins to enter your bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation. So at this point, it becomes chronic. It's not just because your body can handle seasons of stress. Your body's designed for that. I want to preface that, right? So let's say you have a stressful week. Your body is prepared to back you for that week. It knows what to do. It surges you with certain hormones and certain things that can help you get through that season. But you certainly can't function at that level. So,
Yeah.
in a lot of these books that I'm reading, your body's got you. It works really well when you treat it well. And it can help you and sustain you in those hard seasons, but you do have to bring it back. And so knowing this, what's the benefit? Ask yourself the cost benefit analysis. What are you losing or
Yeah.
gaining
And
by not
and
consuming sugar?
it's really hard to get well when your body was never really well to begin with before you got sick, right? Like it happens. Uh, you injure something, you get a sickness, you have a chronic disease, you discover that you're going through a sickness. It's really hard for your body to get well when it's never really experienced that equilibrium of being well. And so if that's ever to happen, gosh forbid that you have to go through something like that, it's great to give your body a fair playing field and you treat your body well. You don't have high inflammation. You're not suffering from all of these things, and your blood cells are in an equal balance. It's a lot easier for your body to fight for you when it's not already previously fighting the environment that you caused.
That's really well put. And, whenever we were researching, of course, just to talk about this, because we want to make sure that we know what we are sharing with you guys. One of my doctors that I follow, his name is Dr. Will Cole, and he shared recently on his Instagram about a study published in Nature that reveals how high fructose corn syrup or high fructose sugar supports the growth of cancer. And there have been several experiments where they used high fructose corn syrup, which is often referenced as HFCS, high fructose corn syrup, because it's the most abundant source of fructose in the modern Western diet. So researchers have said in all cases, diets supplemented with high fructose corn syrup resulted in faster tumor growth compared with control diets. They found that it promoted tumor growth without changing body weight. So this isn't as indirect as maybe we were led to believe about sugar's contribution to that inflammation that causes a breeding ground for cancer. This is really hurting your metabolic health. And when your metabolic functions are not working as they should, I don't know if anyone's read the book Good Energy, but she talks very much about metabolic health, and it's a fantastic read for anyone who's interested. But this processed sugar consumption on cancer growth, there seems to be an undeniable correlation. And, if everything that we were doing was working, if our diets weren't a problem, we wouldn't be looking into this, except for that we're really sick.
Yeah.
And so we need to examine the status quo. And if you feel that maybe one day you may get sick and this may not, you're not ready to take this on today, think to yourself, okay, well, if this ever were to happen, I need to know more so that I can do more for my body. And so think to yourself, what can I do today? Because there is always something that you can do no matter where you are in your journey. And
So,
yeah,
sorry. So
it's
this is
hard.
really interesting, but I asked my parents and grandparents what the grocery stores looked like when they were growing up, just out of fascination and curiosity. And it's interesting because they said that they walk into the grocery store now and they didn't have more than 80% of the things that are currently in the grocery store. They didn't have all these processed foods. They didn't have all of these fun looking cereals, things like that. And so it's like exciting, right? Like you're walking down the aisles and you're seeing all of this colorful labels and all of this cool marketing, and everything just is so out of the ordinary. So it's exciting to see all of this, but at the same time, it shouldn't be like that because that's not how grocery stores ever were. Their grocery stores were just vegetables, meat. They would have the butcher, they would have the bakeries, everything. There wasn't really grocery stores. According to my grandma, they didn't just have a grocery store. They had like the corner market, but you would usually just go to the butcher, and then they had the milkman. They had potato chips delivered to their house. Like a lot of the things were just delivery. It came straight from the vendor, straight from the farmer, wherever you're getting it from, they would just deliver it. But it was just a butcher's shop, a bakery. And you would get your vegetables from the farmer and things like that. So it wasn't necessarily what we have now. I'm sure they did have grocery stores and things like that. But, the common thing was they just went to the bakery and the butcher. Um, it was just a much simpler time. So this just didn't exist back then, and it exists now. And then we have all these problems that come with it. So you think that the cancer would be higher back then because we have so much more research on it, right? But it's quite the opposite, which is seems that's why I believe that it's a correlation, just because you would think that if since we have all this cancer research, cancer would go down because what's changed? We just have a lot more processed foods.
A lot more. Our lifestyles are very
Yeah.
different now as compared to what they were.
Yeah,
And
grandma
I
didn't know what a
think
Pop Tart was.
no, that's probably for the best.
Not that.
Nobody should be eating a Pop-Tart. But that's such a fun, wow. I need to ask my grandparents about
Yeah, ask
the grocery
fun
stores.
thing. I love asking my grandparents just like things like I asked my grandma about health insurance and if she had health insurance when she was my age, what that looked like. She was like, "No. I didn't there was no health insurance back then. We just had kids." It wasn't like that. We went to the doctor and had babies, but we didn't have health insurance. So it's fascinating to hear about those little things that have just changed so much over time. Things that are really prevalent right now, but they were not a thing back then. So, fun activity is call up your grandparents, ask them about what they used to eat on a daily basis, what they would get at the grocery store. What did they have health insurance? What did that look like? How did they pay for when they went to the doctor?
Yeah.
Things like that have just changed so much.
Something that I think I took for granted growing up, we always ate dinner together as a family, which was very rare. We were very busy, but my mom always had dinner cooked. My mom's a fantastic cook. And she always had dinner made for us when we got back from swim practice or whatever it is that we were doing. And we all like had dinner together. And I realized kind of how rare that was the older I got. That's not super common. And a lot of people's parents didn't cook because they're busy. My mom worked, she did all the things, but somehow she's amazing and made everything work. My parents both did a fantastic job with that. But I think, life used to be a little slower. I mean, it's really fast, but life in general used to be a little slower. We are more connected than we've ever been. We're busier than we've ever been.
Mhm.
So big food and, big pharma saw an opportunity to be like, oh, well, let's keep them just healthy enough, but like also just sick enough, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we'll make everything out of convenience for you. We'll put everything here really pretty in your store. Meanwhile, Peyton and I go to the store and we have the best time just flipping over the ingredients and we're like, oh, can't buy that. Can't buy that, can't buy that, can't buy that, can't buy that.
So
I
I love
recommend,
that.
oh, you're
Sorry.
good. You're
It's
good.
so hard. But I love that we do that. And now I go to the grocery store with my boyfriend Nick, and we go together, and he will give me whatever he wants to buy, and he'll say, "Read the ingredient labels." And then it's like so exciting for me because I'm like, "Oh, you can't get that because it has this in it." And then I tell him about it, and then now he knows. So then he'll pick up things and be like, "Oh, look at what this has in it." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So now
Yep.
it's just like fun because it's something that you wouldn't think that is bad or that has just inflammatory ingredients like there's just things that are so hidden, and so now it's just fun because it's a surprise. It
My
really is.
fiance is the same way. He's like, he'll just hand me the thing and he's like, okay, what's in this? Or, he said, if you sent me to the store, I don't know that I would know what to do unless you sent me pictures.
Yep.
Only because he's like, I don't know sometimes what we're supposed to get. He's like, but I learn so much every time we go to the store. Like we're in Costco and I have the best time. And my other thing that I love to do in Costco is recommend healthier products to people in Costco. So someone will be like lingering in front of a product that I like know is good. And they'll hover there and I'm like, you
Yeah,
should get that.
get that one. Get that
That
one.
one,
So good.
so great. 100%.
Yeah.
Do it.
They're like, flip over, look at the ingredient labels. It's great. It's clean. Get it.
And it's the new year, and I've actually had like conversations with two people in Costco. Like I think it was last week. We went to Costco. I was walking around, and these people were in there, and they were definitely trying to make healthier choices. And she actually looked at my grocery cart and just kind of, and I was like, you should definitely try that. And her husband
Wow.
basically said, uh, she's trying to make us healthier. He's like, I don't know. He's like, do these taste like the good kind? It was the lesser evil cheese balls.
You're
Have you
like,
ever had
yes,
those?
yes.
And I'm like, yes. And then I looked at Dave and I said, they're fiance approved. I said, I ruin all of his snacks all the time, but I give him alternatives and it's fine. So it's like the cheese balls, but it's the lesser
Yeah.
evil brand. So they're pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't like eat them all the time or anything, but it is a clean swap. And
Yeah.
so, they have the huge bags at Costco, and I got them last time. And sometimes it's just nice to have a little munchie. And so I picked them up, and the guy was like, "So these actually taste good?" And I'm like, "Yes, they really do." I said he can attest. They're tried and tested. So you do see
I'm
those,
gonna have
buy them
to
at Costco.
I'm gonna have to go loiter at Costco soon and just walk around the aisle, see if anyone needs professional help with picking out
It's
healthier
like, hey,
snacks.
do you
Hey,
need some
I'm
help?
not
But
shopping today, but I'm helping others.
but it's out of it's our community service. No,
Yeah.
I'm joking. It's really so much fun though, and I've actually seen such a change. Like my favorite is when I'm passing through Costco and you see some of the sections that previously no one was touching. My favorite thing about Costco right now is that the sections that I used to pass by, and it was all of my healthy finds, right? That were so amazing. They used to just be like kind of untouched, and all of a sudden now they're like gone, or people are like grabbing them. And I just think that is such a testament to where we are, and we're seeing a shift. It's happening, and I'm seeing it at Costco. So
Yeah.
go.
So with that, we are breaking free from sugar. So these are some signs that you might be overdoing it. So constant fatigue, the brain fog, acne. I think it's for at least females, when you have a hormonal imbalance, some of the ways that you see this is skin, mood, periods, and what that looks like. So you have symptoms that kind of you don't really know where it's coming from, but it could be a symptom of this, especially if you look at your diet and you are consuming a lot of added sugars. So things like
Hmm.
that, digestive issues, mood swings in general, it doesn't have to be just related to females, but these are some things that you can look at. And when you're experiencing these things, try to just cut out sugar and see what that does for you. If that solves your issues, then it's likely all of the added sugar in your diet.
100%. And you know, my my situation, I cut out added sugar. And it changed my life. I did a detox where I followed a protocol, and every week I would drop a specific ingredient or I would drop an item and I would add, different types of foods back in. When I started the cutting sugar process, the way that it really just like reframes your taste buds and what you crave and what you're interested in. I did this 2 years ago at this point, maybe over 2 years ago. And I really haven't looked back from that. And ever since then, if anything, it's only become more. I find it to be a challenge. And over time, I've gotten braver with trying new things and finding healthier swaps. And for a while, I like steered clear of baking. I got like intimidated by how to bake in a better way, because the things that you were always like the things that you were taught, right? Like you follow the little recipe on the back of the cookie, chocolate chips that you wanted to make. I found better alternatives, but reduce your sugar. I promise. It's so worth it. And your body, your mental health, your physical health, they will thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I've like seen that with Rachel going through that, and it did shift your life so much, and it is a hard thing to do. to, especially because you feel like you wean off of it, and then there's something like Alani or Celsius and these drinks that are marketed like they're health drinks and they're actually not. And then you flip it around and it's no sugar, but it has fructose and it has red dye, and it has all of these things. So also another thing to add is that there is mislabeling with sugar. So sometimes things have sugar in it and it says it has no sugar. Like Diet Coke essentially has no sugar in it, but it actually does have something like sugar in it. So sugar likes to disguise itself in many different forms, and there's about 60 different names that sugar can be under and counting, because there's always more. They're always coming up with something else to add to it so they can hide it a little easier. But there's things that specifically say on the package, zero sugar, no sugar added, and there's certainly some type of sugar added in it. So high fructose corn syrup is a form of sugar. Refined flour is a form of sugar. So there's things like that that are in ingredients, and they will tell you that there's no sugar in it, but there actually is. So you have to just know how to read your ingredient labels. If there's things that you can pronounce, that's great. If you can't pronounce it and it sounds like a chemical, might want to do some research about what that actually is.
100%. Try and buy ingredients that you can read is a safer rule of thumb. There's a lot of different foods where you can find sugar, so you'll be surprised that it's in a lot of your condiments and it's in a lot of your sauces. So your ketchup, your salad dressings. Contemplate trying to make a lot of your salad dressings at home. You can also make there's healthier options for condiments if you're interested. I highly recommend looking into some of those. Those are easy swaps that you can make in a heartbeat. There's added sugar in certain breads, so definitely take a look at that. I can't eat bread because I'm gluten free, but if you can, definitely take a look at what the types of bread that you are consuming. Tomato sauce, yogurt, you'll see it in oatmeal. You'll also see it in protein powders even. So contemplate looking into the types of protein powders that you're buying, if that's something that you consume, because a lot of these ingredients are pretty harmful. Also, just a completely separate caveat for protein powder, please check that they are heavy metal tested. A lot of these protein powders are loaded with heavy metals, and so that's not very helpful for you. You're kind of just like canceling out your benefits there. But definitely try to reduce your sugar. It lessens your inflammation, and I saw that in a physical way in my body. I've always been the type of person, I've maintained the same jean size for many, many, many years. But I will say, looking back at photos from, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was puffier just in the face and different areas. And all of a sudden, all of that's gone. Kind of the bloating I was experiencing, those types of things, they left. And the changes are, I feel like, things that only I would notice, but I feel that impact. And while it did manifest itself in like a physical way, I feel so much more energetic than I ever was before. I went from a place of feeling like I couldn't get through the day without a nap or a coffee at the end of the day. And now I am more than happy to kind of keep going because I have the energy to do so. And that's such a blessing. Your body works really well when you treat it well.
So to feel like that, we would suggest just for a week, commit to tracking what you're eating, tracking the sugars and things. I use MyFitnessPal, and it's great because you can easily scan a barcode. It logs it in for you, so you can kind of get your daily diary, and it will tell you how much sugar that you've consumed that day. It's really interesting to see where all the hidden sugars are at. Just using it for a month, like I have changed some of the way that I eat so I can just meet less than my daily sugar intake. But it is really interesting. So I highly suggest every one of you that's listening, if you are interested in finding out where your daily sugar comes from, tracking it, making sure that you actually have like a diary log of it, whether that be an app, writing it down in your phone, whatever it is, however you want to track, just tracking it for a week and seeing what your average is, seeing where it's coming from. Where is what food are you eating that has the most amount of sugar in it daily? And if it's something that you need to change, knowledge is power. You have that information to do so, but it is really informative.
That's such a good idea. Just get a baseline. ascertain where you're at currently, and then you can always, work to drop certain products over time and, create small little goals. Consistency is key. Try and drop, if your constant includes this one thing every day, try and drop it gradually, and then tackle the next thing. If you go all in too fast, sometimes it gets a little overwhelming and you'll
Yeah.
quit. But every tiny change, no matter how insignificant it may feel, is helpful. So track your stuff and let us know if you have any success or questions with this. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who might need to hear it.
Share
But
it with a friend. Call your grandma, call your parents, ask them about what the grocery stores looked like. Ask them about their meals that they would eat growing up. Ask them about their products that were staples in their household. I just think it's really fascinating to see how we've evolved as humans, and also just finding some things that you still do that was very familiar to them. So it's really interesting. It's a great conversation, but thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next Sunday.